But I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Cincinnati joins the rest of the nation in celebrating the national holiday of civil rights icon Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
On this episode of Let's Talk Cincy, King's Cincinnati Connection.
Dr. King has a very close connection to Cincinnati. Began in the 50s.
Keeping Dr. King's dream of love alive in 2024. From WLWT, this is Let's Talk Cincy, presented by Western and Southern Financial Group. Put our financial strength behind you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller, and welcome to Let's Talk Cincy. As usual, there are many events taking place throughout Greater Cincinnati celebrating the King holiday. But I want to begin by talking about the connection Dr. King had with Cincinnati. One person who has a great perspective is longtime community leader Paul Booth. His father was a founding member of the King Center. The ties Dr. King had with Reverend L.V. Booth, Fred Shuttlesworth, Otis Moss, Theodore Berry, and many others made him a frequent visitor to our city.
Dr. King has a very close connection to Cincinnati. Began in the 50s when he was invited here to encourage Theodore M. Berry to run for city council again. So he came and spoke late 50s, 1959 or so, at what was then the Emory Auditorium for a program sponsored by the Berry backers in order to encourage Ted Berry to run for city council again. And then, of course, he came back across the years speaking at Zion Baptist Church, where my father was pastor, Mount Zion Baptist Church, where Reverend Otis Moss was then pastor, and then several times for the Progressive National Baptist Convention that was founded here in 1961.
We talk about Birmingham, we talk about Atlanta and Albany and other places, but Cincinnati was key in the 1960s.
Sure, was movement. Key and pivotal. Cincinnati, Lincoln Heights, of course, Lockland, and those areas were key because of the leaders that we had: Dr. Otis Moss, B.W. Smith, Reverend Damon Lynch, Clayton Waller, and many others. I'm sure I'm missing someone, but they were all key, and they were all a significant part of Dr. King's work, his life, and of the civil rights movement. The Progressive National Baptist Convention gave Dr. King a denominational home and a platform when he and others were dismissed from the National Baptist Convention. So very, very, very significant historically and important to the life of Dr. King, and it really has remained that way across the years.
We look back a lot, but we should also look forward. Your son, Reverend Shuttlesworth's grandson, now lead area churches. Very significant in terms of legacy.
Yeah, and it's so important to pass the torch on to succeeding generations so that we can continue the momentum that we need as a people to move our nation forward.
You've told this story before. Obviously, your dad had a tremendous influence on you. But you've also talked about the influence that King had on you personally. Very few of us can say that we met him. But talk about his influence that he had and still has on your life today.
Sure. A tremendous influence. I met him personally when I was 10. He had preached at Zion Baptist Church for the church anniversary. And that evening, in fact, it was 1964, he was making several stops on his way to Oslo, Norway, to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, and Cincinnati was one of those stops. He came to our home. I think Andrew Young was with him just for a little bite to eat, and I met him. My dad said, you better get his autograph. And at that time, we didn't take pictures, sadly. We didn't have cell phones. But I went and got a little scrap sheet of paper, and he said, no. He said, you better get something more permanent. I'm so glad he did that. I had Dr. King to autograph a book which I still have, a little children's book that I had on the life of Jesus. And, you know, years later, high school, and certainly as I began to go to college, I really began to look at his life and how significant it was. And as a result, I chose the college that I went to, Morehouse College, largely because he attended there, my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and many other things. In fact, we even named our second son Martin. And then I continued that my commitment to civil rights work and to trying to move things forward for human rights and civil rights. In all that I've done, I've dedicated my life to it and still do to this day.
With me now is the president of the MLK Coalition, Rafael Prophet. He is a longtime firefighter, retired now with the city of Cincinnati, and welcome to the program.
Thanks. Thanks so much for having me.
So this is the 49th anniversary of the Cincinnati MLK Coalition to honor Dr. King. Talk about the significance of that.
Yeah, Curtis. And, you know, we, as a coalition, and we have been thinking about what is the coalition's mission moving forward. And last year, we started talking about, we're a one event organization. How can we project the values and the life of Dr. King, the Reverend Dr. King, in a more impactful way? And so we did. We set about thinking about it, talking about it, and one of the things we did, we read his last book, Where We Go From Here, Chaos and Community. And so our mission is what King's mission is to create the beloved community. And so we set a vision of doing that, and we're looking at this, the 49th years, we're making a statement. To get to that 50th year, are we accomplishing what King talked about, creating the beloved community? And so it's significant as we celebrate this.
Selecting 3 people to speak is rather unique. I think one other time we had dual speakers for the program held now at Music Hall. Take me inside. What was the thinking in saying, let's do 3 speakers this year?
Yeah, right. It definitely was interesting in how we came about that. But again, we read his last book, and really the theme of it was the beloved community that came out of it. But how do you create that? And then from his book, it's love, power, and justice. That is a theme throughout the book that King talks about. How do you get to that point? And he took each one of those segments in terms of love, power, and justice that you have to build on that. And so when we came up with those 3 themes, we say, okay, well, can one person really capture all of that? And that'd be a whole lot for one person to really capture. And so we thought about, hey, how about let's do a 3 different people. And then we thought about the different candidates, and folks emerged in the last 3, in terms of Judge Rucker and Raquel Howard Smith and Bishop Tate. That they were selected by the coalition to speak on each one of those. One of the things that King said in his book that is starting to resonate with me is that love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power without love is reckless and abusive. Power is love implementing justice. So as an adult, as a man and someone who's been here in the city for many years, it was all about those 3 things.
Rafael Prophet, thank you very much. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. As you heard, 3 speakers tasked with delivering the message at the citywide celebration, the focus, love, power, and justice. Bishop Ennis Tate, retired Judge Fanon Rucker, and attorney Raquel Howard Smith are in the community on the front line working to make Dr. King's dream a reality. I talked to them about the challenges we still face as we celebrate the King holiday in 2024, and where do we go from here?
First, one of the things I've always admired about Dr. King is the fact that he emphasized collective power, right? Us working across religious lines, working across gender lines and political ideologies in order to pull together our collective power. We are working against some powerful systems, right? And how are we going to overturn them? We have to come together and say what we, the people, want to see change. I think in order to do this work, civil rights work, empowerment work, you have to be an extreme optimist, right? You have to believe that the things that you do actually have the power to change things. We have to celebrate the incremental success. So we are a different country than we were in the 1960s and 70s. However, some of these same issues continue to surface. We have to make sure that we have the people, the leaders, the power here to make sure that we never go back there again.
You touched on your perspective about Dr. King. Tell me about how you learned about him, things that you learned as a child and growing up that probably sent you off to do what you're doing today.
Absolutely. So I have a great story. I went to an elementary school called Martin Luther King Jr. Academy here in Cincinnati. It was a small private school, and that was my training ground. I started there from age 3. And that's when I first learned about Dr. King and Ella Baker and Dorothy Height and all of the people that were in front of, behind, and on his sides, moving civil rights forward from age 3, right? So by the time I got in high school and then matriculated to Howard University, I already had a mindset where I was rooted in my history. I knew my real history, right? And that sparked something in me. I didn't know it when I was 3 years old, but here I am, leading an organization whose mission is to eliminate racism and empower women. The words that resonate most with me is when Dr. King spoke about economic freedom being the foundation for all other civil rights. Most people don't recognize that he was a leader in the labor movement as well, and making sure that we all had access to fair pay, fair wages, access to be able to buy homes and in the neighborhoods where we wanted to live. Those were the words that resonated with me the most.
Justice hasn't changed. The concept of it has. Certainly over time, how we have achieved justice, how we see it, how injustices are formed, and how we accept them or reject them has changed. But for me, justice continues to be the idea that every person receives the equality, the fairness, the fair look in their self and in their rights and in how they're treated as the person standing next to them. Justice is, as Assata Shakur said, what is justice? I don't know, but I can tell you what justice isn't. How we define justice is really dependent on our life experiences. Each one of us got to the place that we are today because of a certain turn, because of an interaction, because of something that we saw or heard. I mean, that's our life experiences. And in that same way, the idea of justice in any particular situation is going to be really different to different people. One of the frustrating things about injustice is how do we get people from different backgrounds, of different ideals, to recognize and acknowledge injustice so that then we can move together to seek justice. We want to believe at our core that when we know that someone has been wrongfully convicted, that they don't deserve to be in prison. But we still have people arguing that the process was fair and that their conviction and their long sentence was appropriate for the circumstances. We all know that's not just. We all know that justice requires that that person be free and be compensated for the time that they were wrongfully in. But somehow, we still won't agree that justice needs to be served in those situations. The days that we celebrate are the pause. They're the reflection on the mission that we all have. Our missions should be 365 days, 366 during leap years. But the day that we stop to celebrate should be a reflection on why it is that we have a mission, why we're planting seeds in our hearts that are going to grow into voices that we speak together and we actually move to make things better. So yes, we all should on this particular day hold hands, and we should reflect on his speeches, and we should reflect on his life lived, and the irony that he was not a loved man all the time then, but everybody loves him now. But we should leave this day with the ideal that the next day we got something to do, and the day after that we got something else to do, and the day after that we have to build on what we did the 2 days before. It has to be never ending, and this is the checkpoint to encourage us to continue to move to the next checkpoint.
When you think about love, it's not words, it's action. And so everything about Dr. King's life, everything about his legacy, all reflect his love, not only for his commitment to his faith, but also his commitment to his family. And then his focus on the work that he was called to do, and that's to really share the importance of a beloved community and what that looks like. The driving force behind the bigotry and the hatred and all of the things that were represented at that time was love. And as we know, the only reason that you know we have this opportunity to celebrate his life is because he loved through his work. He created this love effect that called other races and other religions together. And he was able to utilize that and leverage that to be able to create this message of love, but also to show the importance and the foundation of why, as a human race, love is so important. And the two words that always speak loudly are redemption and reconciliation. In order for us to really make it work, we have to reconcile. We have to come together and say, okay, we agree. And to redemption is really being able to put our differences aside and accept each other for who we are. All of that was reminiscent in Dr. King's speeches and in every march, in every place where he gave inspiration and encouragement. That was the basis of those presentations, was love.
Your perspective about what you see every day, because as I said, you're out there on the front line following shootings, following incidents where there's not a lot of love there. It was a lot of hate and anger, frustration, etc.
When we think about, you know, from a biblical perspective, the first real act of dishonor was murder. It was the slaying from one brother to another. And to your point, the absence of love started, you know, to create this mountain of mistakes. And from that point on, we've now seen the impact that hatred and jealousy and envy can have on a person. But when that person then begins to share that spirit or release that spirit into a community, then all of the evidence that love is absent then takes precedence over people's mindsets. So now we see it on a daily basis, and we see how people are responding, and it is out of hatred, out of anger, out of malice, out of envy, all of the things that destroy a community. So when you have a Dr. King who comes along and promotes and promulgates that love is the fortress, and he knows that it becomes the contrast to the current state of the mind, that's why it's so powerful. But the kind of love that he's talking about is not the kind of love that we can create. It's the unconditional love. It is the true love of a beloved community, which we are still working on. We haven't gotten to that point yet, and it's evident in what we see today.
With me now is Dolores Lindsay. She is a member of the Church of the Resurrection and the annual King Day program that the church puts on. It's Keep the Dream Alive. And first of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
This is the 22nd year for this.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about Keep the Dream Alive program. I know a lot of people hear about the march and the program at Music Hall, but this has been going strong for 2 decades.
Keeping the Dream Alive was the dream of Dr. Brother Hugh Henderson, who was the brother who served at St. Mark's Church, where this event began. And as the churches merged and become the Church of the Resurrection, the congregation or parish members felt it was something that we needed to keep doing. Keeping the Dream Alive is intended to honor the members or people from the broader Greater Cincinnati community for the work that they do in advancing Dr. King's work throughout the Greater Cincinnati area. And secondly, Brother Hugh's dream for this event was to demonstrate or illustrate the role that the Black Catholics have in Greater Cincinnati Archdiocese.
I mentioned that this is put on by the Church of the Resurrection, which is in Bond Hill. But this year, it will take place, it begins in the afternoon of King Day, and it will take place at Savior.
It'll take place at St. Xavier, one of our sister churches, parishes. It's 1436 Myrtle Avenue near Plainfield, across from the Deer Park High School. Okay, because our parking lot is under construction, St. Xavier graciously agreed to allowing us to have this event at their church.
It is a wonderful event. I look forward to it every year. People might see me at Music Hall, but I really look forward to it because it is inside the church.
Right.
It is a more intimate gathering.
Yes, yes.
And I love it.
Yes.
It starts at 3 o'clock each year.
Right.
And again, the difference this year is that it will be in Deer Park instead of Bond Hill. Well, that does it for the program today. I'll see you next time for another edition of Let's Talk Cincy.